All right, welcome in. So it is early to mid-November, and I've got the Central Ohio market update as we head towards the holiday season. So early happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. Right now, the market is starting to show some signs of getting towards more of a balanced market with some of the numbers that we're looking at. Still a little bit of a seller's market, but things are slowing down a little bit, which is typical for this time of year. So let's go ahead and dive into these numbers and take a look at what's going on. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out here is the list price to sales price ratio. List price to sales price ratio peaked out at about 98, almost 99% earlier this year in the spring. It is now down to 96%. So on average, home buyers are negotiating about 4% on off of the list price. That's a pretty good number, a pretty good indicator that the market has slowed down to a point where there's a little bit more balance, where buyers and sellers can actually negotiate and come to a fair value on a property. Now, certainly that's not the case everywhere. From my vantage point, what I'm seeing is the best inventory, the nicest homes that are priced correctly are still being absorbed immediately, sometimes with multiple offers. Depends on the neighborhood and the location. And then, of course, the rest of the inventory, especially if it's priced a little higher, is sitting on the market just enough time to negotiate a fair market value. So I think in this case, it is a good sign for the market. Right now, we're at about 2.5 months supply of inventory. So absorption rates have come back down a little bit from their peak in August. But that 2.5 months is still a seller's market technically, but it is at a point where things are more evenly paced and actually a great position to be in for both buyers and sellers. Certainly, as we get towards the holiday season, we are going to see less demand. And now would be a great time if you're trying to negotiate and get a little bit better value. There's going to be less inventory available, but you might have a better opportunity to negotiate a great price on a home before we hit the beginning of 2026 and then into the spring. I expect demand to spike up a little bit right at the early beginning of January, and then, of course, continue to grow and peak out in the spring of 2026. Average days on market right now, about 35, and that is up. Let's see, 22% from last year. So another sign that goes right along with the other statistics we're just talking about. Average home price appreciation in Central Ohio is between 2 and 3%. So a modest but steady number. In some parts of the country, you're actually seeing lower than that. I think we're doing pretty well here in Central Ohio across the board. Um, and the other thing I wanted to point out is where we stand with new listings and solds. So sold volume this year is almost flat. It's up 1.4%, which is basically even with last year. And then new listings are up about 7%. So we've put more homes on the market this year. We haven't sold quite as many. So therefore, that shows a little bit higher level of inventory. And that demonstrates why we're at 2.5 months supply of inventory as opposed to last year where it was a lower number, and even the year before that where it was way lower as far as supply of inventory goes. Now, rates right now are hovering around 6.1 to 6.3% for the 30-year fixed mortgage. Fannie Mae is predicting that to stay pretty steady throughout the rest of the year, and their prediction is that we will end 2026 at about 5.9% on average. So if that prediction holds true, then you're going to see a slow decline in rates over the next 12 months, nothing drastic. So that is your Central Ohio market update for November. I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you on the December update.